On Monday, July 28, 2025, the usual bustling energy of Midtown Manhattan was shattered by an act of horrific violence. Inside the office building at 345 Park Avenue, which notably houses the headquarters of the National Football League, a gunman opened fire, creating a scene of terror and confusion. The attack unfolded on the 33rd floor, not within the NFL's offices, but in the space occupied by Rudin Management. The sudden eruption of gunfire sent shockwaves through the building and across a city that is all too familiar with the need for vigilance, yet is always stunned by such senseless acts of violence. The incident immediately drew a massive law enforcement response, with officers swarming the area to secure the building and attend to the victims. The initial moments were filled with chaos as people inside the skyscraper sought shelter, unsure of the shooter's location or intentions. The sounds of sirens echoed through the canyons of Park Avenue, a stark contrast to the typical symphony of city traffic and commerce. Employees from various companies located in the building were evacuated, their faces reflecting a mixture of fear and disbelief as they emerged onto the streets. The New York Police Department worked swiftly to contain the threat and piece together the sequence of events. It was a stark reminder of the vulnerability that exists even in the most secure and iconic locations, turning a regular workday into a scene of tragedy that would grip the nation's attention. Law enforcement officials later confirmed the devastating outcome of the attack. The gunman had claimed the lives of 4 individuals before taking his own life. A 5th person was critically wounded in the assault but was later reported to be in stable condition after undergoing surgery, offering a small glimmer of hope amidst the profound loss. The victims included employees working within the building, their lives cut short in a place where they should have been safe. The scale of the tragedy became clearer as the hours passed, with authorities working meticulously to identify the deceased and notify their heartbroken families. A somber task that underscores the deep human toll of such events. The investigation quickly revealed that the shooter's intended target may have been the NFL itself. New York City Mayor Eric Adams explained that it appeared the gunman had taken the wrong elevator bank, leading him to the 33rd floor instead of the NFL's offices. This simple yet fateful error directed the violence toward the employees of Rudin Management, who became the unintended victims of a grievance aimed at the sports league. This detail added another layer of tragedy to the incident, highlighting the random and indiscriminate nature of the violence that unfolded, forever altering the lives of many who had no connection to the shooter's apparent motives. The city was left to mourn and ask how such a thing could happen. The individual behind the deadly assault was identified by police as 27-year-old Shane Tamura, a resident of Nevada. Investigators traced his journey from his home state, noting that his BMW had entered New York City on Monday morning, just about 2 hours before the attack began. Tamura had no known personal connection to the NFL or any of the victims at Rudin Management, which initially puzzled authorities trying to understand his actions. He was armed with a high-powered M4 assault rifle, a weapon that allowed him to inflict maximum damage in a very short amount of time. The weapon, recovered at the scene, became a central piece of evidence in the unfolding investigation into his background and preparations. A crucial discovery was made when police found a multi-page note in Tamura's pocket. This note provided the first clear insight into his possible state of mind and motive. In his writing, Tamura claimed that he was suffering from chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or CTE, a degenerative brain disease linked to repeated head trauma. He explicitly blamed the sport of football for his condition and accused the NFL of concealing the dangers of brain injuries for financial gain. The note was a desperate and angry manifesto, culminating in a poignant and chilling request. "Study my brain, please. I'm sorry." This message framed the shooting as a violent response to a perceived injustice tied directly to the sport. Further investigation into Tamura's past revealed a troubled history. Police sources indicated that while he had played high school football in Los Angeles, he never had a professional or collegiate career. There was no official medical evidence to support his claim of having CTE or any other traumatic brain injury. However, records from Nevada showed that he had been placed on 2 separate mental health crisis holds, one in 2022 and another in early 2024. He also had a prior arrest for trespassing. Despite this history, he had successfully obtained a concealed carry license in Nevada in 2022, raising serious questions about the systems in place for firearm purchases. The information gathered by law enforcement painted a complex picture of the shooter. He was a young man with documented mental health struggles who appeared to have developed a deep-seated grievance against the NFL. While his note focused entirely on CTE and football, city officials were careful to state that the motive was still under active investigation. The combination of his mental health history, access to a powerful weapon, and a fixation on a specific organization created a volatile mix that ultimately exploded in violence. The tragedy left authorities and the public to grapple with the difficult intersection of mental health, gun access, and the powerful narratives that can drive a person to commit such a devastating act. The victims of the shooting were individuals going about their daily lives, their futures stolen in an instant. Among the 4 people killed was a female executive at the Blackstone Group, an investment firm with offices in the same building. Her life, filled with professional achievement and personal promise, was tragically cut short. Another victim was a dedicated police officer, a father of 2 young children with a 3rd child on the way. His death represents a profound loss not only for his grieving family, but also for the community he served and the police force he was a part of. Each victim leaves behind a network of family, friends, and colleagues who must now navigate a world irrevocably changed by this senseless violence. The public and official reactions to the shooting were immediate and filled with sorrow and anger. President Donald Trump expressed his condolences on social media, calling the attack a senseless act of violence and affirming his trust in law enforcement to conduct a thorough investigation. In New York, Governor Kathy Hochul ordered all state flags to be flown at half-staff as a mark of respect for the victims. She used the moment to renew calls for stricter gun control legislation at the national level, specifically targeting assault weapons. She pointed out that the AR-15 style rifle used by Tamura was obtained in a state with weaker gun laws, highlighting the challenge of preventing such weapons from crossing state lines. Governor Hochul's call for a national assault weapons ban resonated with many who see a direct link between the availability of such firearms and the frequency of mass shootings. The fact that the shooter, despite a history of mental health crises, was able to legally acquire a weapon of war and transport it to one of the country's most densely populated cities became a focal point of the debate. Advocacy groups and many citizens echoed the governor's sentiment, arguing that state-by-state regulations are insufficient to address a national problem. The tragedy once again ignited the passionate and often divisive conversation about the Second Amendment and the government's role in regulating firearms to ensure public safety. The National Football League, as the apparent target of the shooter's rage, found itself at the center of the story. The organization issued a statement expressing its horror at the events and offering condolences to the victims and their families. The incident placed an uncomfortable spotlight on the league and its ongoing struggle with the legacy of brain injuries in the sport. While the shooter's connection to football was limited to his high school years, his note tied his violent actions directly to the NFL and the issue of CTE. The tragedy forced the league, its players, and its fans to confront once again the dark side of a beloved American pastime and its potential long-term consequences. Shane Tamura's note thrust the complex issue of chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or CTE, into the heart of this tragedy. CTE is a progressive brain disease believed to be caused by repeated blows to the head, concussions, and subconcussive hits. It is a condition that can only be definitively diagnosed after death through a brain autopsy. Symptoms associated with CTE in living individuals can include memory loss, confusion, impaired judgment, impulse control problems, aggression, depression, and eventually, progressive dementia. The disease has been found in the brains of hundreds of former football players, as well as other athletes and military veterans who have experienced head trauma, making it a serious public health concern. The connection between football and CTE is at the center of a long and contentious debate. For years, the NFL was accused of downplaying the risks of concussions and the long-term neurological damage associated with playing the sport. Research conducted by institutions like Boston University has been instrumental in identifying the disease and linking it to the repetitive head impacts that are fundamental to the game of football. This has led to lawsuits from former players, rule changes within the league aimed at improving player safety, and a greater overall awareness of the dangers. However, the shooter's grievance shows that for some, these efforts are not enough to address the perceived harm. The mention of CTE in Tamura's note creates a difficult and sensitive situation. On one hand, his claim that he suffered from the disease cannot be verified and may have been a delusion fueled by his known mental health issues. Law enforcement sources have stressed that there is no current evidence he had a traumatic brain injury. On the other hand, his actions, however misguided and horrific, draw attention to the real anxieties and fears surrounding brain health in sports. The note's final plea, "Study my brain please," is a haunting request that ties his violent act directly to a desire for scientific validation, leaving a disturbing legacy for researchers and the public to interpret. Ultimately, the Midtown Manhattan shooting leaves behind a series of painful and unresolved questions. It is a story about the devastating impact of gun violence, the critical need for accessible mental health care, and the ongoing struggle to protect athletes from long-term harm. While Shane Tamura's actions were his alone, they occurred at the intersection of several major societal issues. The tragedy forces a difficult conversation about how to prevent future violence, support those in mental distress, and continue to address the profound and lasting consequences of brain injuries in contact sports. The answers are not simple, and the search for them continues in the wake of this terrible loss.